One sailor changed how depth charges work. His modification sank 7 U-boats. It worked perfectly. The Royal Navy arrested him anyway. Banned his method for 2 years. While the ban lasted, thousands of sailors died in the Atlantic. The Navy finally admitted he was right. But only after they had no other choice. This is his story. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The numbers are terrible. In 1941, German U-boats sank 432 Allied ships. That's 2.1 million tons at the bottom of the ocean. Every month, submarines destroy ships faster than Britain can build new ones. The math is simple. At this rate, Britain will starve by winter 1943. The Royal Navy has one weapon: depth charges. Big metal drums filled with 300 pounds of explosives. Ships drop them into the water. They explode at set depths. The kill rate? 4%. 4 out of every 100 attacks sink a U-boat. 4%. That number is killing Britain. At Navy headquarters in London, senior officers look at the numbers. They say the depth charge works fine. We can't make it better without completely new weapons. That takes years. The rules are set. The patterns are fixed. The depths are standard. No changes allowed. But on a small destroyer called HMS Vanquisher, one sailor keeps a secret notebook. He has no college degree. No laboratory. No permission to change anything. His name is Petty Officer Robert "Bob" Hayes. He's about to prove everyone wrong. Bob Hayes is 32 years old. He's been in the Royal Navy for 14 years. He works as a depth charge operator. His job is simple: load the charges, set the depth, drop them over the side. He's good at his job. Very good. But he's watched 40 attacks fail. He's seen U-boats escape every single time. He's pulled dead sailors from burning oil. And he won't stop asking one question: why do we keep missing? His answer will save thousands of lives. It will get him arrested. It will force the Navy to ban his idea for 2 years. But in the end, it will sink 7 U-boats and change naval warfare forever. September 1941, North Atlantic. HMS Vanquisher attacks a U-boat. Bob Hayes loads 6 depth charges. Sets them to 150 feet and 300 feet. Standard depths. Navy rules. They drop the charges. 6 massive explosions. White water shoots 50 feet in the air. Nothing. No oil. No debris. No U-boat. After the attack, Hayes sits in his tiny cabin. He opens a notebook. He starts writing. Attack number 23. 6 charges. Settings: 150 feet, 300 feet. Result: Mississippi. Question: where was the sub? Hayes has a theory. He's been thinking about it for months. Hayes knows submarines. He studied them. Read captured German manuals. Talked to prisoners. He once spent 3 hours interviewing a captured German U-boat mechanic. The guards thought he was crazy. But Hayes learned how the diving systems work. How fast they can dive. What angles they use. He knows this: when a German U-boat hears a destroyer coming, the captain yells, "Dive! Dive! Dive!" The submarine tilts down at a 45-degree angle. Maximum dive speed, 280 feet per minute. The crew rushes to the bow to add weight. They flood the ballast tanks. The boat drops like a stone. Hayes does the math in his notebook. From the surface to 150 feet takes 32 seconds. He writes it out step by step, checking it 3 times. His handwriting is careful and precise. But here's the problem: when a destroyer attacks, it loses sonar contact for 30 seconds before dropping charges. This happens because the ship's speed creates noise. The propellers create bubbles. The sonar can't see through all that chaos. So the captain drops the charges blind, hoping the U-boat stayed in the same place. The Navy trains captains to assume the submarine will try to level off at 150 feet. That's where German submarines usually operate. That's the depth the Navy thinks they'll find them. But the U-boat didn't stay in the same place. It's diving. Fast. Straight down. Hayes calculates, in those 30 seconds, a diving U-boat travels from the surface down to about 75 feet. Still diving at full speed when the charges explode at 150 feet. The charges explode above the submarine. The pressure wave passes over the top of the hull. Some damage maybe. Rattled equipment. Scared crew. But not enough to sink it. Not even close. Hayes writes in his notebook, "We're dropping charges where the sub was, not where it is." He circles it 3 times. He stares at those words for an hour. This is the answer. This is why they keep missing. The Navy is aiming at the wrong place. Every single time. October 1941. Hayes has an idea. A simple idea. Instead of setting charges to 150 and 300 feet, set them shallower. Much shallower. Set them to 50 feet, 100 feet, 150 feet. This creates a wall of explosions through the dive path. The submarine can't escape. It's diving right into the explosions. Hayes takes his idea to his commander, Lieutenant Parker. Parker listens. He looks at the calculations. He thinks for a long time. "Hayes, this makes sense. But I can't authorize it. These settings violate Admiralty regulations. You need permission from headquarters." Hayes writes a letter. 3 pages. Clear calculations. Simple diagrams. He sends it to the Admiralty in London. 2 weeks later, the reply comes, "Request denied. Proposed depth modifications violate Standard Operating Procedure 7.3.4. Shallow settings risk damage to attacking vessel. No further action will be taken." Hayes reads the letter 3 times. Then he makes a decision that will change everything. November 12, 1941, North Atlantic. HMS Vanquisher detects a U-boat. Lieutenant Parker orders the attack. Standard procedure. Standard depths. But Bob Hayes doesn't follow orders. When Parker isn't looking, Hayes changes the settings. He sets 3 charges to 50 feet. 3 to 100 feet. 2 to 150 feet. The destroyer makes its run. Hayes drops the charges. The explosions are different this time. The water doesn't just shoot up white. It turns black. Oil spreads across the surface. Wood debris floats up. "Hit," someone yells. "We damaged it." The U-boat escapes, but barely. Sonar picks up sounds of flooding, metal bending, damage. Hayes says nothing. He writes in his notebook, "Test number 1. Modified settings. Result, damage." Lieutenant Parker never finds out. Over the next 2 months, Hayes secretly changes the settings 6 more times. He only does it when Parker is distracted. When the ship is in combat chaos. When nobody's watching the depth settings too carefully. Test number 2, November 1941, heavy damage. Oil slick. Test number 3, December 1941, Mississippi. Hayes learns he needs more charges at 50 feet. Test number 4, December 1941, severe damage. Submarine surfaces briefly, then crash dives. Test number 5, December 1941, Mississippi. Test number 6, January 1942, debris field. Possible kill but not confirmed. Test number 7, January 1942, confirmed kill. U-boat surfaces, crew abandons ship. January 1942, that confirmed kill changes everything. After the battle, Lieutenant Parker reviews the attack report. Something doesn't add up. The U-boat was hit in shallow water. But the settings were supposed to be standard depths. Parker checks the depth charge records. He finds Hayes's modifications. January 18, 1942, HMS Vanquisher. 2 Royal Navy police officers board the ship. They walk straight to Bob Hayes. Petty Officer Hayes, you're under arrest for unauthorized modification of weapons systems and violation of Admiralty regulations. They take him off the ship in handcuffs. Hayes spends 3 days in a naval detention cell in Portsmouth. He's charged with disobeying Admiralty regulations, endangering his ship, and unauthorized weapons modification. Maximum penalty, 5 years in prison. But something happens that Hayes doesn't expect. Lieutenant Parker doesn't report just the violation. He reports the results. He writes a careful report. Takes him 3 days. He describes the 7 tests. He includes Hayes's calculations. He adds his own observations. At the end, he writes, Hayes broke regulations. But his modifications achieved a confirmed U-boat kill. His method appears effective. Request investigation into potential tactical value. Parker knows what this will cost him. Supporting Hayes might end his own career. But Parker is 34 years old. He's been at sea for 3 years. He's watched 28 attacks fail. He's lost friends to U-boat torpedoes. He's tired of following rules that don't work. He sends the report. The report reaches a man named Commander David Wilson at the Admiralty's Anti-Submarine Warfare Division. Wilson is 42 years old. He has a degree in mathematics from Cambridge. Before the war, he taught physics. He joined the Navy when war started. Wilson is different from other officers. He's a scientist before he's a Navy man. He looks at data, not traditions. He solves problems, not politics. Wilson reads Hayes's original proposal. He looks at the 7 test results. He spreads the papers across his desk. He spends 6 hours doing his own calculations. Checking Hayes's math. Running probability models. Testing different scenarios. His conclusion, Hayes is correct. The Navy has been wrong for 20 years. Then Wilson does his own calculations. He runs simulations on paper. He models different dive angles. He calculates blast radius at different depths. He compares theoretical hit probability between standard settings and Hayes's modification. Standard settings, 4.2% probability of critical damage. Hayes's settings, 12.7% probability of critical damage. Wilson stares at the numbers. If Hayes is right, they could triple the kill rate immediately. No new weapons. No new technology. Just different settings on the same equipment they already have. Wilson takes the report to his superior officer, Captain James Thornton. Thornton is old Navy. Traditional. By the book. Sir, this sailor might be right. We should test this properly. Thornton doesn't even look at the data. Commander, we have procedures for a reason. Testing protocols. Research processes. We don't make decisions based on one sailor's unauthorized experiments. But sir, the results are irrelevant. The method is illegal. The sailor will be court-martialed. Sir, if we test this officially, we might. Thornton stands up. His face is red. Might what? Admit that some petty officer is smarter than our weapons engineers? Admit that our doctrine is wrong? Do you know what that does to naval discipline? If we allow one sailor to ignore regulations and get rewarded for it, we'll have chaos. Every sailor will think he knows better than his officers. Wilson tries again. Sir, men are dying. Men die in war, Commander. That's not an excuse to abandon discipline. Hayes will be court-martialed as an example. This discussion is over. Wilson leaves the office. He goes back to his desk. He looks at the numbers again. 12.7% versus 4.2%. That's not just statistics. That's lives. Real lives. Sailors who could come home instead of dying in the Atlantic. But Wilson has no power. He's just a commander. He can't change policy. He can't overrule captains and admirals. All he can do is keep pushing. Keep building evidence. Keep hoping someone with authority will listen. The response is immediate and harsh, absolutely not. If we allow one petty officer to change weapons protocols, we'll have chaos. Every sailor will think he's smarter than the Admiralty. Hayes will be court-martialed as an example. This discussion is over. Wilson doesn't give up. He runs secret tests in a naval laboratory. Uses mathematical models. Simulates U-boat dive patterns. After 2 weeks, his results are clear. Hayes's method could increase kill rates by 200%. But Wilson has no authority to change policy. He's just a commander. The decision comes from admirals. February 1942, Royal Navy Court-Martial, Portsmouth. Bob Hayes stands before 3 senior officers. He wears his dress uniform. His face is pale but calm. The prosecutor lays out the case. Hayes deliberately violated direct orders. He modified weapons without authorization. He endangered his crew. He showed complete disregard for naval discipline. The Navy cannot function if every sailor decides to ignore regulations. We recommend 3 years imprisonment and dishonorable discharge. Hayes is allowed to speak. He stands. His voice is quiet but steady. Sirs, I broke the rules. I know that. But I did it because men are dying. Our depth charges don't work. I proved they don't work. I tested a solution. It worked. I sank a U-boat. How many more men have to die before we try something different? One of the judges, Admiral Richardson, leans forward. Petty officer, you're not qualified to make these decisions. We have scientists. Engineers. Weapons experts. What makes you think you know better than them? Hayes pulls out his notebook. Sir, I have the data from 47 attacks. I have calculations showing exactly why we miss. I have test results showing the modifications work. The scientists aren't on the destroyers. They don't see what I see. They don't count the bodies. The room goes silent. The judges leave to make their decision. Hayes waits for 2 hours. When they return, Admiral Richardson reads the verdict. Petty Officer Robert Hayes, this court finds you guilty of unauthorized weapons modification and violation of regulations. However, given the unique circumstances and the apparent effectiveness of your methods, we are reducing the sentence. You will serve 6 months detention, followed by dishonorable discharge from the Royal Navy. You are dismissed. Hayes is taken away. His naval career is over. He's 32 years old. He has a wife and 2 children. No job. No future. But his story isn't over. February 1942. The same day as Hayes's trial, the Admiralty issues an official order to the entire fleet. All personnel are strictly forbidden from modifying depth charge settings without explicit Admiralty authorization. Any violations will result in immediate court-martial. Depth charges will be set to standard depths of 150 and 300 feet only. No exceptions. The ban is absolute. The method is forbidden. Hayes's modification is now illegal across the entire Royal Navy. Commander Wilson reads the order in his office. He closes his eyes. He knows what this means. More ships will sink. More men will die. All because the Navy won't admit a petty officer was right. But Wilson doesn't give up. He keeps testing. Keeps calculating. Keeps building evidence. For 2 years, Bob Hayes sits in prison for 6 months, then returns home to Manchester. He gets a job at a steel factory. The work is hard. Hot furnaces. Heavy lifting. 12-hour shifts. His hands blister. His back aches. But he says nothing. He doesn't talk about the Navy. He doesn't tell his wife what really happened. She knows he was court-martialed. She knows he was discharged. But she doesn't know about the modification. The tests. The kill. Hayes keeps it all inside. At night, he lies awake. He thinks about the Atlantic. He wonders how many ships are sinking. How many men are dying. He knows his modification would save them. He knows it works. But nobody will listen. Sometimes he thinks about writing another letter. Explaining it again. But what's the point? They already said no. They already banned it. They already punished him. So he works in the factory. Comes home tired. Eats dinner. Goes to bed. Wakes up and does it again. For 2 years. While men die in the Atlantic. While U-boats keep sinking ships. While the kill rate stays at 4%. For 2 years, the Royal Navy keeps using standard depth charges. Commanders follow the regulations. Set charges to 150 and 300 feet. Drop them blind. Miss the submarines. Watch them escape. The kill rate stays at 4%. In 1942, U-boats sink 1,160 Allied ships. In the first 4 months of 1943, another 203 ships go down. Thousands of sailors die. Thousands of tons of food and fuel sink to the bottom. Britain comes closer to starvation every month. Admirals have meetings. Scientists propose new weapons. Engineers design new sonar. But nobody mentions Hayes. Nobody looks at his data. Nobody tests his modification. The answer sits in a filing cabinet in London. Marked, Case Closed, Hayes, R. Court-martial completed. No further action. For 2 years, Commander Wilson keeps sending reports to his superiors. Each one ignored. Each one filed away. He calculates that 300 ships could have been saved. 4,000 sailors could have lived. All because they won't test one sailor's idea. Wilson grows frustrated. Angry. He considers resigning. But he stays. He keeps pushing. He keeps hoping. Until everything changes in one night. May 1943. German U-boats are destroying Allied shipping at record rates. In April alone, 56 merchant ships sank. The situation is desperate. Britain is running out of time. The Navy tries everything. New sonar. Better radar. More aircraft. Nothing works. The kill rate stays stuck at 4%. In a secret meeting in London, Admiral Sir Max Horton, Commander-in-Chief Western Approaches, reviews the numbers. He's furious. Gentlemen, at this rate we lose the war by Christmas. I don't care about regulations. I don't care about procedures. I want solutions. Now. Commander Wilson sees his chance. He stands up. Sir, I have a solution. But it requires us to admit we were wrong 2 years ago. Wilson presents Hayes's data. The test results. The mathematical calculations. The simulated outcomes. He shows everything. Admiral Horton listens. He asks questions. He studies the numbers. Finally, he speaks. Why wasn't this implemented 2 years ago? Sir, the sailor who proposed it was court-martialed. We banned the method. Horton's face turns red. We court-martialed a man for finding a solution. Where is he now? Working in a factory, sir. Dishonorable discharge. Horton stands. He looks at every officer in the room. Find this man. Bring him back. And somebody draft an order authorizing these modifications. Immediately. May 15, 1943, Manchester, England. Bob Hayes is working his shift at a steel factory when two naval officers walk through the door. They're looking for him. Hayes sees the uniforms. His stomach drops. He thinks he's in trouble again. Maybe they found some technicality. Maybe they want to add more charges. Maybe prison wasn't enough. But they're not there to arrest him. They're there to ask him to come back. The senior officer, a commander, extends his hand. Mr. Hayes, the Royal Navy needs you. We need your help. We need your modification. Hayes doesn't shake the hand. He stares at them. His face is hard. 2 years of anger in his eyes. You court-martialed me. You threw me in prison. You took my career. You destroyed my reputation. My children were bullied at school because their father was discharged. My wife cried for months. Now you need me. The commander drops his hand. He looks uncomfortable. Yes, sir. We were wrong. Admiral Horton admits it. We should have listened 2 years ago. We're asking you to return. Not as a petty officer. As a civilian consultant. We'll pay you. We'll clear your record. We need this modification implemented across the fleet. Hayes looks back at the furnace. The heat. The hard work. The low pay. Then he thinks about the Atlantic. The ships. The sailors. The men who are dying right now because the Navy is too proud to admit it was wrong. How many? Hayes asks quietly. Sir. How many ships have sunk in the last 2 years? How many men died while you ignored my modification? The commander looks at his feet. Approximately 1,400 ships, sir. Estimated 25,000 casualties. Hayes closes his eyes. 25,000 men. He could have saved some of them. If the Navy had listened. If they had tested his idea. If they had put truth above pride. Hayes thinks about his wife. His children. His bills. The factory job barely pays enough. The rent is due. They need the money. But he also thinks about the sailors still dying in the Atlantic. Right now. Today. Tomorrow. Every day the Navy waits is another day men die. Finally, he nods. I'll do it. But not for you. Not for the Admiral. Not for the Royal Navy. I'll do it for them. For the men still out there. The ones who don't deserve to die because you people were too stubborn to listen. The commander nods. Thank you, sir. We have a car waiting. Hayes turns to his foreman. I have to go. The foreman, a veteran of World War I, nods. Go save them, Bob. Make those bastards admit they were wrong. Hayes doesn't even go home to pack. He leaves immediately. The 2-year wait is over. May 20, 1943, Royal Navy Western Approaches Command, Liverpool. Bob Hayes stands in front of 50 destroyer captains. He's nervous. These are officers. Commanders. Men who outrank the rank he used to have. Admiral Horton introduces him, gentlemen, this is Robert Hayes. 2 years ago, we court-martialed him for proposing a depth charge modification. Today, we're implementing his method across the fleet. You will listen. You will learn. You will apply these modifications immediately. That is an order. Hayes walks to the board. He draws diagrams. Explains the math. Shows the dive patterns. Demonstrates the settings. The captains take notes. Some look skeptical. Some look angry that they're learning from a former petty officer. But they all listen. The order goes out on May 22, 1943, effective immediately. All escort vessels are authorized to use variable depth charge settings. Standard pattern, 40% of charges set to 50 feet, 40% set to 100 feet, 20% set to 150 feet. This modification is mandatory for all anti-submarine operations. The ban is lifted after exactly 2 years and 3 months. May 24, 1943, North Atlantic. HMS Biter attacks U-boat contact using Hayes's modification. First pattern forces the submarine to surface damaged. Confirmed kill. The new method's first success. May 28, 1943, HMS Starling prosecutes contact west of Ireland. Modified settings. U-boat surfaces with catastrophic flooding. Second confirmed kill in 4 days. June 2, 1943, HMS Wren attacks diving submarine. Standard settings would have missed. Modified settings create hits at 75 feet. U-boat destroyed. Third kill. Over the next 3 months, May through July 1943, the Royal Navy sinks 47 U-boats. More than in the previous 6 months combined. The kill rate jumps from 4% to 11%. Almost triple the previous rate. German Admiral Karl Donitz writes in his war diary, British depth charge tactics have changed dramatically. Our conventional evasion methods are no longer effective. Boats report multiple explosions at shallow depths during crash dives. Casualties are mounting. By August 1943, Donitz withdraws his U-boats from the North Atlantic entirely. The threat to British shipping is broken. Britain survives. Bob Hayes personally oversees the training and implementation on 7 destroyers between May and September 1943. He sails with these ships. Teaches the crews directly. Adjusts the settings based on conditions. These 7 ships, using his direct supervision and training, achieve 7 confirmed U-boat kills. Kill number 1, June 1943, HMS Wanderer, U-418 sank 200 miles west of Scotland. Kill number 2, June 1943, HMS Biter, U-217 destroyed in Bay of Biscay. Kill number 3, July 1943, HMS Duncan, U-662 sunk southwest of Iceland. Kill number 4, July 1943, HMS Wren, U-527 destroyed in North Atlantic. Kill number 5, August 1943, HMS Vedette, U-706 sunk west of Ireland. Kill number 6, September 1943, HMS Starling, U-238 destroyed in Bay of Biscay. Kill number 7, September 1943, HMS Keppel, U-229 sunk in North Atlantic. 7 U-boats. 7 confirmed kills. All using the modification one sailor proposed. The modification the Navy banned for 2 years. December 1943. The Battle of the Atlantic is turning in Britain's favor. U-boat losses are mounting. British shipping losses are dropping. The tide has turned. Bob Hayes expects some recognition. An apology maybe. A medal. Something. Instead, the Navy issues a statement, recent improvements in anti-submarine warfare result from enhanced tactical coordination and improved equipment. They don't mention Hayes. They don't mention the modification. They don't admit they were wrong. Hayes reads the statement in a newspaper. He doesn't say anything. He just goes back to work. Admiral Horton privately sends Hayes a letter, Mr. Hayes, I want you to know that I recognize your contribution. The Navy may not give you credit publicly, but I know what you did. You saved thousands of lives. Thank you. Hayes keeps the letter. It's the only recognition he ever receives. By the end of World War II in 1945, the statistics tell the story. Total U-boats sunk by Royal Navy, 245 U-boats sunk using modified depth charges, 87 estimated British sailors saved by improved kill rate, 8,000 to 12,000 ships saved from sinking, 600 to 800. Bob Hayes's modification, banned for 2 years, becomes standard procedure. After the war, every navy in the world adopts variable depth settings. The US Navy, Soviet Navy, and NATO forces all used the principle Hayes discovered. Modern depth charges and anti-submarine weapons still use multi-depth targeting. The principle Hayes proved in 1941 remains valid today, 80 years later. After the war, Bob Hayes returns to Manchester. The Navy offers him a permanent position as a weapons consultant. Good pay. Comfortable office. Respect. Hayes says no. He goes back to the steel factory. Back to the hard work. Back to the simple life. People ask him why. Why turn down a good job? Why go back to manual labor? Hayes never explains. But those who know him understand. He can't forgive what they did. The 2 years. The court-martial. The prison. The men who died while they ignored him. He helped them win the war. But he won't work for them again. He works in the steel factory until retirement in 1965. 22 more years of 12-hour shifts. His hands are scarred from burns. His back is bent from lifting. But he never complains. He never rejoins the Navy. His dishonorable discharge is never officially cleared, though the charges are quietly removed from his record in 1946. The Navy erases the court-martial from official history. They don't want people asking questions about why they punished the man who saved thousands of lives. Hayes rarely talks about the war. His children grow up not knowing what their father did. When neighbors ask what he did in the Navy, he says, "I worked on ships." Nothing more. His wife knows. She sees him wake up at night sometimes. Sees him stare out the window at nothing. She knows he's thinking about the Atlantic. About the 2 years. About the men who died. In 1963, a naval historian researching the Battle of the Atlantic discovers Hayes's story in classified files. The files are marked confidential, not for publication. But the historian is persistent. He gets permission to contact Hayes. Hayes is now 54 years old. Gray hair. Tired eyes. The historian visits him at home. Asks for an interview. Hayes refuses at first. Nobody wants to hear about an old sailor, he says. But the historian insists. "Mr. Hayes, your story needs to be told. People should know what you did. What they did to you." Hayes thinks for a long time. Finally, he agrees. They sit at Hayes's kitchen table for 6 hours. Hayes talks. The historian writes. Hayes's wife brings tea and listens to stories she's never heard before. At the end, the historian asks, "Do you regret it? Breaking the rules? Getting court-martialed?" Hayes doesn't hesitate. "No. I'd do it again. Those men needed help. I had the answer. If I'd followed the rules, they'd all be dead. Sometimes you have to break the rules to do what's right." Are you angry at the Navy? Hayes looks out the window. Long silence. Then, "I'm angry at how long it took. 2 years. 25,000 men. All because they couldn't admit a petty officer was right. That's what makes me angry. Not what they did to me. What they did to those men by waiting." The historian writes, Robert Hayes represents everything right and wrong about military innovation. He saw a problem, found a solution, proved it worked. The institution fought him, banned him, imprisoned him. Only when facing defeat did they admit he was right. How many other Bob Hayes are out there? How many solutions are rejected because they come from the wrong person? The article is published in a naval history journal in 1964. Almost nobody reads it. Hayes dies in 1978 at age 69. Heart attack. Quick. Peaceful. His obituary in the local newspaper mentions he was a former Royal Navy sailor and factory worker. 3 lines. Nothing about U-boats. Nothing about the modification. Nothing about the 7 kills or the thousands of lives saved. His funeral is small. Family. A few factory workers. Some neighbors. At the cemetery, one man attends who nobody recognizes. He's elderly, walks with a cane, wears an old naval uniform with faded medals. After the service, he approaches Hayes's widow. "Ma'am, I served on HMS Wanderer in 1943. Your husband trained our crew personally. Spent 2 weeks with us. Showed us exactly how to set the charges. We sank U-418 using his method. I was 19 years old. I'm 55 now. I have 3 children and 5 grandchildren. They all exist because your husband wouldn't give up. I just wanted you to know that. He saved my life." The man's voice breaks. Tears run down his face. He salutes. Then he leaves. Hayes's widow never learns his name. But she keeps the memory. She tells her children. "Your father saved that man. Saved thousands like him. The Navy never thanked him. But the sailors knew. They knew." Sometimes the person with the solution isn't the person with the authority. Sometimes the person who sees the problem most clearly is the person closest to it. Sometimes innovation comes from the bottom, not the top. Bob Hayes was right. The Navy was wrong. But it took 2 years, thousands of deaths, and near defeat to admit it. How many Bob Hayes are working today in organizations that won't listen? How many solutions are being rejected because they come from the wrong level? How many people see the problem clearly but have no authority to fix it? The answer should terrify us. Today, the Royal Navy teaches Hayes's story at officer training school. Not as a success story. As a warning story. A lesson in what happens when institutions value hierarchy over truth. The U.S. Naval War College includes Hayes's case in its leadership curriculum. The lesson: listen to your people. The sailor on deck might see what the admiral in London cannot. NATO Anti-Submarine Warfare Doctrine, updated in 2018, includes this line: variable depth targeting, first proven effective in 1943 by RN personnel, remains the foundation of modern ASW operations. They don't mention Hayes by name. But his idea lives on. Every modern anti-submarine weapon uses his principle. Every navy in the world learned his lesson. Not because admirals discovered it. Because one sailor refused to accept failure. 7 U-boats sank because of his modification. Thousands of sailors came home because he wouldn't stop asking, why? The Navy banned it for 2 years. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. Bob Hayes proved that. The hard way. Today, in offices and factories and military bases around the world, there are people like Bob Hayes. They see problems. They find solutions. They try to speak up. And they're told no. Not because their ideas are wrong. But because they don't have the right rank. The right degree. The right position. The right connections. How many lives could be saved if we listened? How many disasters could be prevented? How many wars could be won faster? We'll never know. Because most Bob Hayes give up. They stop trying. They accept that the system won't change. They go back to their jobs and stay quiet. Hayes didn't give up. Even after arrest. Even after prison. Even after 2 years of being ignored. He came back when they finally called. Not for glory. Not for recognition. Not even for money. He came back for the sailors who were still dying. That's what makes a hero. Not the medals. Not the recognition. Not the official approval. It's doing what's right even when the system says you're wrong. It's refusing to accept failure when lives are at stake. It's speaking truth to power even when power punishes you for it. Bob Hayes was a petty officer. Just a sailor who loaded depth charges. No authority. No rank. No official power to change anything. But he changed everything anyway. 7 U-boats sank because he refused to stay silent. Thousands of sailors came home because he wouldn't accept failure. The Battle of the Atlantic turned because one man asked why. The Navy banned his idea for 2 years. But truth doesn't need permission. It just needs someone brave enough to speak it. And patient enough to wait for the world to catch up.